This is Manchester today, a confident metropolis of polished glass, media hubs, and high-speed rail. Looking at the gleaming towers of Deansgate Square or the vibrant cultural arteries of the Northern Quarter, you see a city that has successfully reinvented itself as a beacon of the 21st century. It is clean, it is connected, and it is undeniably modern. But let's peel back 175 years. Let's command our simulation to strip away the tarmac, dissolve the steel, and extinguish the electric lights. The year is 1850. The air instantly thickens, tasting metallic and sour. The bright grey sky of modern England is replaced by a perpetual, suffocating twilight. You are now standing in Cottonopolis, the shock city of the age. In this era, Manchester was not merely a city. It was a global experiment in human endurance and mechanical efficiency. It was the workshop of the world. But to many who lived here, it felt more like the anvil. By analyzing the dense cross-hatching of Gustave Doré's engravings and triangulating them with census data from the mid-19th century, we have generated a point cloud that reveals what the history books often sanitize. We are not just looking at the grand architecture of the industrialists. Our digital recreation allows us to walk where the sunlight rarely touched. We are descending into the grime hidden beneath the mills, the forgotten slums, where the fuel for this great engine lived and died. Before we explore the grand machinery of trade, we must first adjust our eyes to the gloom. This is the Victorian era, stripped of its romance and rendered in high-fidelity grit. To understand the organism that was Victorian Manchester, we must first locate its bloodstream. In most cities, the river is a source of life. In the Manchester of 1850, the River Irwell is a conduit of production. If we position our virtual camera just above the waterline near Blackfriars Bridge, the first thing the simulation renders is not the reflection of the sky, but an iridescent slick of oil and indigo dye. The water here does not flow, it oozes. It is thick, opaque, and almost black, a chemical soup composed of the refuse from the dye works, the tanneries, and the thousands of privies lining the banks. Engels famously described this river as narrow, coal-black, and foul-smelling, and our sensory reconstruction suggests the odor would have been physically overpowering a miasma of sulfur, rotting organic matter, and boiled bones. Yet, look closer at the traffic. This foul water is teeming with activity. Flat-bottomed barges, piled high with raw cotton bales imported from the American South, navigate the sludge. The air is filled with the rhythmic thud of steam pumps and the cursing of bargees fighting for space. This is the artery. It is ugly, toxic, and utterly indispensable. It is the liquid conveyor belt connecting the spinning mules of Lancashire to the markets of the world. But where does this raw energy resolve into power? We follow the bales from the muddy banks into the city centre, to the beating heart of the global textile trade, the Royal Exchange. If the mills were the muscles of the empire, this building was its brain. Completed in its grandest form in the mid-19th century, the Exchange dominates the digital skyline of our reconstruction. As we dissolve the walls to reveal the interior, we are met with a space of staggering classical proportions, vast columns, a soaring dome, and a floor space designed to hold thousands. But architecture is only the shell. Using contemporary accounts and acoustic modeling based on the hall's dimensions, we can recreate the soundscape of high change, the peak trading hour on a Tuesday. It is not the polite silence of a library, it is a deafening roar. This is the Parliament of Commerce. Here, thousands of the merchant-class men in top hats and frock coats gather to dictate the price of cotton for the entire planet. There is no shouting of orders like a modern stock floor. Instead, there is an intense, murmuring hum that rises to a crescendo, a sound likened by visitors to the crashing of waves or the buzzing of a disturbed hive. In this reconstructed space, we see the prototype of the modern global financial system. A nod from a merchant near the central pillar could send a ripple through the economies of India, Egypt, and the Americas. The wealth generated here was astronomical. The polished marble and the gold leaf detailing stand in stark, defiant contrast to the black sludge of the Irwell just a few hundred yards away. This engine ran on precision, capital, and confidence. It was a temple dedicated to the god of free trade. But as we pull our camera back out through the portico columns, we must remember that this immense concentration of wealth relied entirely on a labor force living on the very edge of survival. The engine required fuel, and to find that fuel, we must leave the clean air of the exchange and plunge into the smoke. To find the soul of industrial Manchester, we cannot stay in the marble halls of the exchange. We must follow the money to where it evaporates. We are heading just a few hundred yards north, crossing the River Irk, to a place the Victorians themselves christened Hell upon Earth. Welcome to Angel Meadow. Our digital reconstruction here struggles to render the sheer density of humanity. By cross-referencing the 1851 census returns with sanitary inspection maps, we have rebuilt a labyrinth of alleyways so narrow that if you stretched out your arms, you would touch damp brick on both sides. The ground here is not paved. It is a mixture of clay, ash, and human waste. If we were walking here in reality, the first thing to assault you would be the smell. This district possessed almost no drainage. Our physics engine simulates the accumulation of night soil waste thrown into the streets, creating a sludge that coated the boots of every child running through these alleys. Zooming into a cross-section of a single tenement on Charter Street, we reveal the cellar dwellings. These were not basements for storage, they were homes. Entire families, 7, 8, sometimes 10 people, lived in windowless subterranean rooms below the waterline of the river. The walls glisten with moisture. The air is stagnant, heavy with the smoke of coal fires that have no chimneys to escape through. Listen to the audio landscape here. It is a chaotic symphony of survival. The coughing of textile workers with bisonosis, brown lung, the crying of infants, the shouting of hawkers selling tainted meat for pennies. This is the commercial hustle of the desperate. It is a scene of raw, unpolished humanity, living in the shadow of the very factories that consumed their days. But Manchester was a city of two nations. To see the other side, we must virtually board a carriage and travel 3 miles south, away from the prevailing winds that carried the smoke. We arrive at the toll gates of Victoria Park. The transition in our simulation is jarring. The roar of the machinery and the screams of the slums are instantly cut. Silence rushes in, heavy and expensive. Victoria Park was a private estate, a gilded cage for the merchant princes who ran the exchange. Here, the digital fog lifts, the sky is lighter. We see wide, tree-lined avenues illuminated by the warm, steady glow of private gas lamps. The architecture shifts from crumbling brick to imposing Gothic and Italianate stone villas. Walk up the driveway of one of these mansions. The texture underfoot changes from slime to crunched gravel. Through the large bay windows, we can peer into a world of radical exclusion. Heavy velvet curtains, mahogany dining tables set with silver, and walls adorned with oil paintings. The sensory contrast is absolute. In Angel Meadow, life is lived publicly, in the mud and the noise. In Victoria Park, life is private, sealed behind high walls and heavy doors. The air here smells of lavender and beeswax, not sulfur. This was the great paradox of the Industrial Revolution. The men inside these villas were often the same men who owned the mills that darkened the skies over Angel Meadow. They built a sanctuary of order and beauty, funded directly by the chaos and grime just 3 miles away. Our reconstruction shows these two worlds existing in the same timeline, separated by a distance that felt like an ocean. We leave the domestic spheres behind and return to the source of the heat. We travel to Ancoats, often cited as the world's first industrial suburb. Rising from the smoke like a fortress is our legacy subject Murray's Mills. While the Royal Exchange was the brain, Murray's Mills was the skeletal structure that defined the industrial age. Completed around 1806 and operating at peak ferocity in 1850. This was not merely a building, it was a cathedral of industry. In our digital recreation, we have restored the complex to its original, terrifying symmetry. We are standing in the central courtyard. Look up. 8 stories of red brick tower above us on all sides, creating a canyon that blocks out the horizon. This design was intentional. It turned the factory into a closed system, a self-contained universe where the only reality was work. Notice the water at your feet. This is the Rochdale Canal, but observe how it doesn't just pass by the building. It enters it. We have reconstructed the tunnel under the mill, where barges would float directly into the complex to offload coal and raw cotton. This was a marvel of logistics, an integration of transport and manufacturing that prefigured the modern assembly line. Deep inside the structure, our X-ray view reveals the beating heart, the engine house. Here sat the colossal Boulton and Watt steam engines. By analyzing the structural reinforcements in the walls, we can calculate the vibration that would have hummed through the floorboards a constant. Rhythmic tremor felt by every worker, from the basement to the attic. This building is the statement architecture of the era. Before this, production happened in cottages. Murray's Mills centralized power, surveillance, and labor into one monolithic block. When you look at this structure through our digital lens, you are looking at the prototype for the Ford plants in Detroit, the tech assembly lines of Shenzhen, and the logistics hubs of the Amazon era. The concept of the factory system, synchronized, relentless, and massive, was codified here. The brick walls of Ancoats set the template for the modern world's obsession with efficiency, casting a long shadow that stretches from 1850 all the way to the present day. As the sun sets over our digital Ancoats, the fires in the furnaces dampen, and the black smoke finally begins to clear. The deafening roar of the Royal Exchange fades into a distant whisper, and the cries from the cellars of Angel Meadow are silenced by the passage of time. We pull our camera back, rising high above the soot-stained chimneys. As we ascend, the Victorian city dissolves. The mud turns to tarmac. The gas lamps spark into electric streetlights. The grime is washed away by a century of change. We are left looking at the modern skyline, but now we see it differently. We know what lies beneath the foundations. Through this digital lens, we have walked the streets of Manchester not as tourists, but as ghosts of a forgotten era. We have breathed the air of the Industrial Revolution and stood in the shadow of the machines that built the modern world. This project is not just about architecture. It is about memory. It is about visualizing the cost of progress and the lives that paid it. History has left us the blueprints in paint and ink. Technology has allowed us to rebuild the walls, but this is only the beginning of our archive. The world is full of buried cities waiting for the dust to be blown off their stories. We have the tools, and we have the maps. The destination, however, depends on you. We have revived Manchester. Now, the choice is yours. Which global metropolis should we reconstruct next? Rome in its fall, New York in its rise? Tell us in the comments. Your vote decides our next journey.